Hey, welcome to episode number 275 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording May the 10th, 2026. My name's Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, Linux computer nerd, because that's appropriate for tonight's episode. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and started a small little preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
Mm-hmm. Or until Jeff shows up, right?
Well, or until Jeff shows up. He didn't show up tonight, though. Just saying.
Yeah, he was busy doing something else, which is all good. We all got our things
That's
to
fine,
do.
yeah. This is true.
And I'm Brad. I'm in Eastern Ontario, part-time amateur prepper, constantly trying to better myself. Not doing too good at the moment. A few setbacks, but still kicking it.
Hey, setbacks happen.
And I'm the Frugal Gunny. I'm an off-grider, a shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type. I'm a generalist, pretty big into self-sufficiency. After spending about a year off-grid without toilet paper and then another one away from home, now back in the Ottawa area, I started a training business called Off-Grid School, where we teach all manner of off-grid skills to small groups in hands-on, in-person, outdoor environments.
You say a year without toilet paper. I hope that wasn't across COVID. Sorry, I had to. Somebody had to.
Yep.
I don't actually remember typing in with no toilet paper.
Okay. Fantastic. I'm glad I'm not the only one that gets the show notes changed around on him now.
Yeah, that was really good.
Took me a while going through everybody's intros and whatnot to do something.
Yeah. Nice work.
But, yeah, for all those out there, if you want to help support the show, you can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds we collect from those help to cover our podcast costs and keep us on the air.
Gunny.
Right. So if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and submit a review wherever you found us. We want your feedback, even if it's bad. We also invite you to reach out and tell us about something you learned this week. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so this episode, we're nerding out, and we're nerding out hard. We're talking about Linux and just how it can help you out with your digital preparedness, because being self-reliant today isn't just about food, water, and generators anymore. Yeah, we're probably going to freak you out a little bit about how much Windows and other things spy on you. But we're going to start out with some recent news, which is probably going to scare you about Microsoft a little bit, or not. Depends on your level of OPSEC. We'll update you on our personal preps. Then we're going to get into the main topic, why more preppers need to move over to Linux if you're security-minded and you want a little bit of independence from the big tech ecosystem. So moving to the news. Like I said, I've got an article here from TechRadar in regards to Microsoft's recall tool is back and still has major security concerns. So if you're running Windows and you don't know what Microsoft recall is, you should probably check out this article, Google it, and have a check, because it is doing all kinds of things like AI screenshot logging. It is watching your entire existence on your computer and keeping a copy of it and just holding it there or doing other things with it. So as you're surfing around, go ahead, Gunny.
Of course, it's all for our good. And,
of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
They would never do anything nefarious.
Of course not, but it's constantly screenshotting your screen at certain increments and watching everything you do. So might be a good reason to move to Linux that doesn't do that. Do you really own your computer anymore at this point? We're going to find out as we go through the slides with Gunny.
Love it.
But I'll put that news article in the chat here so everybody can have a quick peek. And that's what I've got for news.
I, for one, will definitely be reading that later. Maybe not today, but
yeah, that's fine. At some point, read about it. It's definitely worthwhile checking out Recall, and it caused quite the waves when it came out and disappeared for a while. It came back. It came out again. It's back again. yeah, if you're running Windows 11, read about it, know that it's there. You're going to want to understand how it operates for sure. And it's not something that you can easily turn off.
No, it's really integrated into the thing, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yeah.
Well then.
Yeah, but with that doom and gloom, we promise it's going to get better, and we're going to talk about operating systems that don't spy on you. But before we do that, let's move into what we've done lately for prep, shall we? And we'll kick off with Brad.
So work. Plenty of driving this week. It's going to be a recurring theme moving forward for the next little while with a new client that we've got that I seem to be the one that's servicing them the most. Bunch of gas rotation. Another scrap run in yesterday, plus on the way for another good haul for next week as well, and it's only Sunday. Family arrived yesterday from the East Coast for a 2-week stay. Going to be a lot of cleaning out of my parents' former house, and then that will hopefully, fingers crossed, be on the market for June. Looking for a quick sale if we can, just to clean that up. Mm-hmm. And working on an overhaul of my little flat trailer, little red open-ended, just utility trailer, so to speak. Working on taking all the boards off of it and doing all of the rewire, grease, change of tires, that kind of thing. And put new lights and everything in it. More work on getting all my things prepared and together for my little trailer in my little trailer for the little exposition down to Preppers Meet in July.
Looking forward to Preppers Meet. It's going to be a good go.
Yeah. As am I. I
Always
can't wait
is.
to see your trailer, bud.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, for myself, fell into a little bit of a new position at work, so it's a temporary thing. So just kind of getting comfortable with that. Hanging out with family. If you ever want to test your marriage, try building a spring-free trampoline. It is worse than IKEA, I swear. But we did it. So we survived, and it works.
Spring-free trampoline.
Yes.
Have you talked to Scott about this?
No, but I should, because we should probably get a few more for the asteroids. Yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
And the zombies.
And the zombies and all that thing. Yeah. We're going to test this one first and see how it works for said things. It works great for launching the kids, so I'm sure it'll be fine for asteroids. And we'll go from there. But yeah, spring free is definitely like IKEA. It will definitely test your marriage. But we made it through.
This is why I don't have to watch comedy, because real life is way from there.
100%. 100%.
All right. What do you got, Gunny?
All right. Well, we've got quite a thing going on there these days. I've been just getting ready for this episode, and a lot of work. Other than that, when the boss starts to get to know you by name and wants you there and asks for you by name, you kind of have to go.
That's a clue.
So, yeah, I go.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
if they want you there, that's good.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I'll keep you posted.
All right. Fair enough. Cool. Well, with that, maybe we'll move into the main topic, as we have a lot to bite off tonight. Gunny has done a ton of work putting together a very fancy slideshow for those of you who are watching live. Unfortunately, those of you who are listening to the audio version down the road won't see this, but we'll be able to put the slides up for any of the Patreons that are over there on that side of things, so you can see the visual later on down the road. But it is up in front of us now, and let's kick off. And I'll jump in where I can. Brad, feel free to jump in too, and let Gunny run the show, and let's nerd out and talk Linux or Penguins.
Go.
If you're a Linux person, you'll get the joke.
Sounds like a plan to me. Well, let's dive right into it. It's been a ton of fun preparing for it. Now, for those of you who are listening in, I'm going to try and spell out acronyms. There's an awful lot of them. I may have forgotten one or two along the years, but I'll try and keep it descriptive for those of you who might be listening while you're driving you're not going to be looking at the acronyms. All right. So let's, with that nerd alert out of the way, let's move on because we've got a lot of content here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Linux is and how different it is from Windows. We'll look at probably the biggest meat of the entire discussion, which is the pre-installation tasks, things you need to do before you actually go through the installation. It's a little bit like moving. You know, the moving itself is actually not so bad if you do the homework of properly preparing all of the steps prior to doing the move. If you don't do that, I can guarantee you the move is a bit of a nightmare. So we're going to try and make this easy and not go that route.
It's a fantastic way of putting it. I like it.
Everybody knows what moving is like, right? If you've moved at least once, that's probably been enough for a lot of people. I've moved dozens and dozens of times. So we'll just move on from there. So who's this for? Who is Linux for? Well, if you're worried about a virus infection, if you've been the victim of ID theft or a scam, it might be really high on your priority list. Maybe you're fed up with the lack of privacy, transparency, support, reliability, or maybe it's the cost and the frequency of always having to upgrade your hardware because, well, Microsoft says so. What do you think of that idea? I'm not a big fan of somebody else telling me when I need to upgrade my hardware. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, exactly why I'm running Linux on the machine I'm streaming from. I built this computer in 2013 with parts that were current to that year. It's still running perfectly fine.
Voila.
No issues.
Nice.
That's my use case for Linux. I'm not used to running the brand new hardware. I can't do it. It's just way too expensive. I find that the middle ground is something that is between 3 to 7 years old. That's a good middle ground for something that's going to run for a long, long time on Linux. If it's older yet, you can still run Linux. I am running a laptop that was built and sold and manufactured in 2014. So
nice.
This is shipped with Windows 7. This is how far back we're going. Okay. A dual core.
Old now, Gunny.
I know. Oh man, I'm old. I've been doing this since the 90s. For those of you who want to know about my credentials, since the 90s. So yeah, I'm old. But it's gotten a lot easier. I can tell you the first time it was hard. So the other reason you might want to be doing this is because you want to be in charge of your tech instead of the tech being in charge of you. That to me is a really big deal. I think a large part of the problem that we have today is that the technology is in charge at many levels, and it's changed our character and our way of being. So I'm really into self-sufficiency. It's like my everyday life. I'm always working on being more self-sufficient every day. And I've been doing the Linux thing myself for well over 10 years now, about 12 years actually, day to day, but I've been using it a lot longer. It might be for you also if you just want to do something different with no monetary cost. There's no cost. It's just your time.
That's the big one. Hey, wait a minute. Windows doesn't cost me anything either. It comes with my computer pre-installed.
Oh.
Really?
That's something.
Or does it?
Or does it? Yeah.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. There's definitely a cost to Windows.
I love it because I was a Windows guy for many years. In fact, I can say that, and I'm not sure I'm proud of this, but I was probably a big part of making the computer such a ubiquitous thing in people's lives because I trained people on how to use computers. I mean, literally how to turn it on, how to use Windows, how to run apps, all this kind of stuff. I even taught Bell employees how to use Netscape. Right?
Oh, you're taking me back, Gunny.
Yeah.
Netscape.
I'm really old. Okay.
Next thing you know, we're going to be talking like 33.6 baud modems or 14.4 baud modems, maybe 9600.
My entry point was at 28.8.
Oh,
So that
yes.
gives you an idea.
V90, I heard.
Who can Google really fast there? You can look up when I was first connected. Now for
14.4 for me.
14.4. So that means
Mhm.
you were probably into it earlier than I. Nice work.
Only a couple months.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing, though, and how expensive was it to buy a computer back then?
Wasn't cheap.
It wasn't cheap. It's about what it was about what it is now.
Yeah.
I remember my first computer costing me over $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what really aggravated me is that they kept on coming back to draw more money out of me because Windows was not working right. It was crashing. And they kept telling me I just needed Windows reinstalled. So I brought back the
Or more
computer and reinstalled the Windows. And you know what? The next
Didn't
day
help,
I
did
brought it home. The same problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, it drove me crazy. So that's what
That was
drove me
always
to
the fix.
Yeah.
That was always the fix when I was working in the computer shop. It was
Isn't it?
reinstall Windows. Problem solved.
Problem solved, right? Well, the other reason to do this isn't just because it's costing you. It's because you just want to delay the next hardware purchase. And
Yes.
that's been me for the last 15 years. I caught on pretty quickly that you can pay an awful lot of money to be an early adopter and to jump in the very latest and greatest. So that's the biggest reason for me to stick around Linux is I get to run the same old system for a way lot longer.
Yep.
And I don't have to artificially upgrade just because somebody else says I need to.
Yep.
Or because they decide they don't want to support my security anymore and they don't want to issue code for me unless I buy their newest. I have issues with that. We have more issues with all of that too. The fact that Microsoft has been using AI to manage and maintain its code for quite a few years now has led to the mess we have now. Computers that brick themselves on their own without any interaction of your own. Your computer can brick itself from its own updates.
That's always fun. That's always fun.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. So, but it wasn't always so. And so this is where Linux comes in. So I've cobbled together a really very, very brief history of Linux because, man, we could go way deep in the weeds here, and that's not the intent. I just want you all to kind of get an idea of where it comes from. It actually comes from an old monopoly that was broken up by the United States. That monopoly was called AT&T. They had basically an entire stranglehold on the U.S. telephone infrastructure from the physical cables and the posts that they sat on all the way to the switchboards, all the way to the digital systems that were used to replace those switchboards, to the training, to the parts, to everything, the distribution, the whole works. So it started a whole generation of antitrust trials. And in 1956, the U.S. government, or rather the courts, forced AT&T to no longer sell PCs, or sorry, we didn't call them PCs back then, but they were computers, and they were big. They could no longer sell those computers or that software for profit. So what happened is the operating system portion, which was the software that they were using to run their computers, they had to open that up. And so they gave that out for very little money to universities. And that was Bell Labs that created that Unix. And they gave that away to Berkeley University, amongst others. And Berkeley University released that later under various different open licenses in the form that you now know as OpenBSD and FreeBSD and NetBSD. Those all came from Berkeley University. So we're talking about academics, pretty smart folks, way smarter than me, way smarter than me.
What is
you might
BSD?
find BSD under. You might find BSD under the hood of, I don't know, Mac.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. In fact, that's 100% correct. Next, it comes from BSD, and Next was the core of the Mac OS and still is. And since then, a lot of companies licensed and modified Unix, and it's still running a lot of servers today. HP sold their own called HPUX, or lovingly by some of us, HPUX. We had AIX, which was released and managed and maintained by IBM. You had Sun OS, which was, of course, by Sun Microsystems, later evolved into Solaris and Open Solaris. So very, very rich history there of Unix. Now, this fella named Linus Torvalds, he got to experience Unix at university. And he heard a talk. He gave a speech. This fellow called Richard Stallman, who was a bit of a free software guru. He was espousing free software. And Linus began to develop a free operating system. And I quoted him here in my slide, quote, as a hobby, won't be big and professional like GNU, unquote, is what he wrote in the forums. So I just want you all to remember that. He just started this as a hobby. He's fooling around, right? He wanted to have Unix on his machine, on his own personal machine. So where did my history with it begin? It began with Red Hat Linux 0.92B. B means beta. Beta, man, that's old. So this is before it was released, they called it beta. In order to get it running on my laptop so I could communicate to the outside world, I had to compile my own kernel, and it was quite a job. It took me quite a few days to figure out how to do it and actually do it, and then to see it boot. It was really, really a great achievement for me. I loved it, but I didn't really touch it on the desktop for quite a long time after that. From there at work, I began to use Red Hat on a lot of different security appliances, Red Hat Enterprise. And over time, I moved on to the training world. I began to use Fedora and CentOS. And I managed to maintain servers at work that were based on Linux. In 2015, I started using Linux Mint on my daily driver. And now all my systems are running Linux or Unix. To do the screenshots that I'm going to show you today, I had to borrow a laptop. All right. So Linux is pretty different. It's really different. Eric, you've used it. So how different is it?
Oh, yeah. Everything in Linux is a file. That's probably the number one thing that you've got to get used to compared to Windows, where you've got drive letters, you've got folders, you got files, which exist. Folders and files still exist in Linux, but everything is a file, and not everything has an extension. You don't need like .txt or .exe or .anything. That probably took me the longest time to get used to. Is it's just a file that exists and can do a thing that you have to control and set permissions for and decide what it can do and what it can't do, and you get way more control with a Linux machine than you could ever even think about having with a Windows machine. But there is a huge learning curve for sure. Not nearly as bad in today's versions that are released now as years back that Gunny was talking about. I remember going through those pains as well and compiling my own kernels and doing all that kind of stuff. That's kind of, you can still get there to that level if you want. You can go to that level of nerdiness if you really want to, but you don't have to. These days, there's a lot of trying to mimic the Windows experience, but there is still a learning curve to get through for sure.
Most definitely.
Now, how much of a learning curve? Like really big. Like if I've only ever run Windows or like the normal.
I can give you a quick example, Brad. A girlfriend that I was with for 11 years, when I met her, had zero computer experience, wanted nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. I showed her how to use Windows 95 at first, because that's an old laptop I had. I figured she can't break it. Well, sure enough, she outgrew it in no time flat. So then she started getting my Castaways, my old PCs. And before I had split with her a while back, she asked me to build her a machine. So I did. And guess what? It ran Linux. It's still running today. And that was in 2015, I built that machine for her. So the same machine, still running today with Linux Mint. So
nice.
If that tells you, and she is running it every day, and all she does, bud, is browse. Listens to music, YouTube, Facebook. That's it. The same stuff. The same stuff almost everybody else does, right?
Yep.
Collect videos, photos. Everybody has photos and documents they want to store. And Linux can do that for you with zero technical knowledge on your part.
Okay.
So that to me is the biggest selling point. I would set up Linux for my mom. Now, under the hood, it's very different. So if you're used to supporting things with drive letters or serial numbers, you're not going to experience that with Linux. On the other hand, Linux is much less targeted. So in 2022, AV Atlas found and published some numbers on malware that they detected. And I went and crunched down the numbers. And Windows rang in at 70%, almost 71% of the total share of new malware that year. 70%. Linux accounted for not quite 2%. So the numbers are staggering, and they keep varying. Today, Linux has a massive market share. On the mobile device world out there, we have 75% of the mobile device share from Android. If you're running Android, you've got Linux under the hood.
Sure do.
Okay.
Nearly half of the world's web servers are running on Linux. And you've now got more than 5% of gamers out there in the world on Steam running Linux, including myself. So it is very, very doable. And it's going to continue to trend and continue to grow as far as I'm concerned, especially as the large corporations begin to see their end users as a money-making source, a money tree from which they can pluck anytime they want.
I think probably the biggest growing pain, especially if you're going to like Linux Mint, which is kind of designed to ease you into a Linux environment coming from Windows, is getting away from the Microsoft Office suite. That is probably going to be your biggest pain point. But there are alternatives like LibreOffice. There's some other free Office alternatives that you can put on Linux. But that is probably the biggest pain point, especially if you're going to be using it for business work or receiving like Word docs or Excel spreadsheets or any of those types of things. That took a little bit of getting used to for me. But there are alternative software packages that will read Word documents, that will save in that format. You can send the files back and forth with users of Windows who have Office. But that was probably the biggest pain point that I see with people switching over.
And I have to acknowledge that reality, Eric, because I have licensed software that I used for this very presentation deck that you're looking at right now. And you can see how I run it in Linux. I don't run it in Linux.
That is very much so Windows.
I run it in Windows. So by running it in Windows, and I'll just minimize PowerPoint here for those of you who are watching on screen, I'm literally running PowerPoint in a Windows virtual machine, and it's got a proper Windows start menu and everything. And this is how I run my Microsoft Office software for many years now, since 2014. When my Microsoft Windows computer began to tell me about a certain prime minister's socks, I was done, folks. I had to go. And that's where it went from there. So if you're interested in navigating that, personally, if it's your very first time, maybe do it on an older machine that you've got sitting around that you're no longer using because it's running too slowly with Windows, for example. Right. So let's begin, because the preparatory work is everything. It really is. So
good thing we're recording this. I can just listen to this later.
Exactly. And if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, if the TLDR thing is what you want, you can join us on Patreon and you can download the deck directly there. So there you have it. No AI here. I didn't use any AI to create this stuff. So I don't know if you'll get this information on AI if you ask AI how to install Linux. I don't know. But this came from my brain. So you're seeing a brain dump here. So the first thing you've got to do, back up all your data. If you haven't already backed up your data recently, what are you waiting for? Don't even think about Linux. Just go back up your data. Go do it now.
Yeah, regardless. Yep.
Okay, good. We've established that.
By the way, back up your data and then test
Right.
the backup to make sure it works.
That's right. In fact, that's the next biggest thing, right?
Look at
So
that.
you got to back up your data. That means all your files. Sometimes you've got software that you've paid for, games. Make sure you've got more than one place where you store it, and most definitely test your backup. Really. And if this is your only machine that you're considering doing this on, which, hey, that's what I do. All my main systems are running Linux, so it's doable. I just recommend that if you need to roll back to your previous build of what you had before, you might do well to image your system. So there's lots of great tools. Some of them are paid for, like Acronis. It's got a great series of tools that I used to use to
Very
support
good.
Windows users. Yeah, they're very solid.
Yep.
You can't go wrong. And I think their price is pretty good for a 3-pack license. So that's one way to do it. But then you can use the built-in Windows utility, which is called Vim. Personally, I like Clonezilla because it's free and open source, and it can boot off of every known hardware that I have touched. So I'm a Clonezilla guy. Whatever you do,
It's good.
back up. Back it up. There's just no reason to proceed without a backup. All right. Now that I've scared
Just to clarify as well, if you are installing this on a computer that you currently have running Windows, you will be, unless you're doing a dual boot setup, but you will be erasing everything on that computer and starting fresh.
Yes.
Or if you're doing a dual boot setup, which allows you to boot into either Windows or Linux on startup, you are still playing around with the partition table on your computer. One wrong move, everything's gone. So that's why we're pushing backup. It's very important. And even if you're not looking at installing Linux and you're keeping Windows because you just want to, still back up your data, because why wouldn't you? But people lose things all the time because they haven't properly backed their stuff up.
There's also this new kind of malware that's been around for quite a few years. It's not new. It's called ransomware.
No.
So what it does is it encrypts your data in place. Wherever it is, it encrypts it. And now if you want to access it and use it again, you got to pay money to unlock and obtain that encryption key.
And surprise, they're probably not sending a decryption key even if you do pay them.
That's right. So you're borked. Right?
Yep.
So back up your data. Now, that being said, you're going to have to go through some potentially destructive, and by what we mean destructive, Eric did mention dual booting. That's something that is not for the shy. If it's your first foray into Linux, I do not recommend dual boot, full stop. This is something I recommend for the operating system devotees like myself. I became an operating system specialist because I love to tweak and I love to break things and figure out what makes them work and what makes them tick. And one thing I love is building it and handing it over. I hand it over once it's built, and then people get to use it. So that's why I became an OS specialist. So before you can install any OS competently, you need to know your hardware. That's really important. If you're dual booting, you need to know your hardware even more, because now you've got to deal with your hardware in 2 different operating systems, not just one. So you need to do a hardware inventory. You need to know what hardware you've got. So there's a little tool that I used to use in Windows because it allowed me to open the computer without opening it. In other words, it listed for me all of the important details about the system so that I could then make important decisions. So that tool is called CPU ID. It's a hardware inventory tool. Now, just recently, in the last 3 weeks, this tool has been the victim of a major attack. And so there were versions available on their website for a time that installed malware. Those versions, of course, have been rolled back. But beware, if you have been downloading CPUID in the last few weeks, there have been some versions that are compromised. So that's one tool you can use. There are others out there. I can't tell you about them because I don't trust them. I haven't used them. Most hardware inventory tools will access your system in a deep way, and they could hide malware. So I encourage you to use other means to do a hardware inventory, including using your Windows Device Manager. The other thing you need to do is to go into your BIOS or UEFI. So the BIOS and the UEFI, I'm going to break what those are. They are the basic input-output system. That's the BIOS. And UEFI is the Universal Extensible Firmware Interface. What are they? They're firmware. They basically store and save the configuration that your system needs to boot up into a chip. That's what it does. And that chip is called a flash chip, and it's the same kind of chip you use today in your USB sticks, in your cameras, and your phones. So that software is called firmware. Now, in that software, in your BIOS or your UEFI, you have got some features that you're going to see in there. So the older UEFIs are going to have compatibility support mode or compatibility mode. And another feature you're going to see is secure boot. So compatibility mode is a feature that allows a computer to work with older operating systems that do not have the new architecture internally that can look at UEFI. So new systems that had UEFI but needed to be able to work with older versions of Windows, for example, you would simply run compatibility mode. Secure boot is a feature that Microsoft released in partnership with hardware vendors to allow the operating system to only be launched and modified when certain encryption keys were exchanged. And that would be a patch, if you want, a Band-Aid to make Windows more secure. Whether it works well or not, you'll be the judge. You saw the malware numbers. You heard the malware numbers. So why do you need to do hardware? What's that, bud?
It's more of a pain than anything.
It truly is.
Let's be honest.
It really is. It's a pain for end users who want to have control over their system. It's a pain for admins who just want to have control over the system. And it's actually not a pain at all for hackers because they can easily bypass all that stuff. So it's a lot of complexity. It just gets in our way then, isn't it?
Complexity is a nice way of putting it, yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice. For many years, I made income from being a Microsoft expert. So I'm trying to be nice, but sometimes it's hard. So the other reason you need to know your hardware is because there's some red flags that you need to be aware of. Certain things that can be showstoppers in terms of configurations. So if you're using fake RAID, also known as Intel RAID or onboard RAID, there's odds that you're going to have issues making that configuration work properly. You might have to separate that RAID array, break it out, and set your hardware differently. For more information on that, you should look up your specific motherboard model if you're dealing with a motherboard. Most likely, it's not often I see mobile devices that actually use fake RAID, but I've had a couple, 3 in fact. So they exist and they're out there. So that's the only thing about fake RAID. You might have to break those RAID arrays apart. What is RAID? RAID is a redundant array of independent disks. It's when you have more than one disk that works together to share a workload. As simply put, that's what it means. Another issue that you're going to run into.
It is not a means of backup. Just
no, it's not. Thank you for that, Eric.
You're welcome.
Not a backup method at all.
All the nerds listening are nodding along, I'm sure.
Yes, I hope so. RAID is a way to either get performance or a little bit of redundancy in your disk storage. But that is it. It is still vulnerable to stupid things that occur on all operating systems. Things like random errors in memory caused by space rays. That can flip a bit in memory while data is being written, and you could have data that is incorrectly written. This happens. Most of the time, nothing happens untoward and things continue on rolling somehow. It's a bit of a miracle, really. There's all kinds of issues that can affect storage, right? That's one of them is fake RAID. Other issues that I've run into personally, a lot of badly supported printers or scanners, really badly supported wired adapters for networking. So if you connect through a wired connection, sometimes some older devices don't work well, or some really new devices don't work at all. And I've seen some Wi-Fi adapters that don't work well at all in Linux, and that you have to purchase an external adapter, a USB adapter, or a PCI Express or a PCI adding card, and away you go, right? So that's why you want to know about these issues ahead of time. And another
nice part,
yeah,
I was going to say that the nice part about knowing your hardware is it's usually a pretty simple Google search to find out whether or not it's compatible or not. It's very well documented these days versus back in the day, like me and Gunny were talking about, where we had to compile our own kernels and all that. Things are not nearly as well documented then, and you're kind of guessing and cross your fingers and hoping. These days, pretty much there's somebody else that has the same hardware that you've had that has tried it, documented what worked and what didn't work. So you're not going to go in blind. You're going to have a fairly good idea of what's supported and what's not. And a good chunk of hardware these days is supported because a lot of people are switching over to desktop versions of Linux. So don't let this slide scare you. Chances are the hardware you have will work. The caveat is there might be a couple of little hiccups along the way, but they will most likely not be anything that you can't overcome.
I have to agree 100% with Eric here. Don't let these make you worry that, oh, I'm going to need to stop what I'm doing. In fact, Linux Mint is very friendly to older video cards. The reason I flagged those older video cards is if you're expecting to be able to game with those older video cards in Linux, you might have to reset your expectations on that. However, with newer hardware, it almost always works really well. But like Eric says, just about everyone has already seen your hardware with Linux. That's because there's a lot of programmers who prefer Linux over any other operating system. So it turns out that pretty skilled people are usually looking at the problem before you get to. That's a good thing, I think.
Yep.
So that's why. So you want to know your hardware and inventory it so that you can search to know if there are any issues with your Linux distribution. So one of the ways that you need to look at your hardware is by, like I said earlier, looking at your BIOS or your UEFI. It turns out that Microsoft makes that really hard for you to do. So at the same time as I describe in a slideshow here how to get to your UEFI in Windows 11, it's really similar in Windows 10. I'm going to spell it out and describe it as I go through the process. It all begins with one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts in Windows 10 and Windows 11. And if you don't know this one, y'all should commit it to memory.
Let me guess. Alt F4.
Oh, I love Alt F4. It's the Windows.
Sorry, I saw an opportunity. I had to jump on it. Carry on.
I love it. Windows X. The Windows key and the X key will bring up a little power user menu. And in that menu, you're going to see a number of things that you may never have seen before in your start menu. And those are the device manager and the settings. Those are the biggest ones I use. Also, I tend to refer often to the disk management side and the computer management side when I'm troubleshooting. The system is also a good place to go to gather some quick information in Windows 10 and Windows 11. But at this point, we're interested in getting into the UEFI or the BIOS. And in Windows 10 or 11, that starts by going into settings. So once you tap on settings or click settings, you're going to see a number of different things on your screen. But on the lower left-hand side is where you'll find Windows Update. They really bury this. So Windows Update is where you need to go further to get into your UEFI. The third step, once you tap on Windows Update, is then you go to Advanced Options. Advanced Options will then lead you to another screen where you can then find Recovery. You might have to scroll down to find that recovery setting or that recovery button or interface. Anyway, you're going to tap on Recovery, and that's going to take you to yet another screen where you will see down on the bottom a little button, a lonely little button that says Restart Now with Advanced Startup to the left of it to kind of guide your eye. I really had to look for this, folks. When I first started using Windows 10 and 11, it drove me batty. So I hope this helps somebody out there. Once you tap that Restart Now, it's going to ask you once again if you're sure about this with another prompt. So you're going to have to tap again, Restart Now. But you're not done yet. A few seconds later, it's going to come up with another big blue screen, and it's going to show you the option to use a device, which, by the way, is how you boot from a Windows stick. It's very difficult to boot from anything else unless you go first into your BIOS like we're about to do here by tapping on Troubleshoot. Because Troubleshoot will lead you to reset your PC or see Advanced Options. Once you're in that screen, this is the 8th step now, you get the option to go into Advanced Options. So you tap on that. And that takes you to another screen for Advanced Options where you will finally see the ability to tap on UEFI firmware settings. Wow. And then once more, you're going to have another interface element. You're going to have to tap on a restart button to finally restart the system and finally boot into the BIOS. And finally, now your actual system takes over. Its BIOS or UEFI will boot up. And in the case of the description that I have here on screen, I put up an HP BIOS, which uses the F10 key to get into the BIOS setup. So when you finally do that restart from the UEFI firmware settings window, you're going to have to keep a quick eye on your screen, because that's when you're usually going to have to mash a key combination or a key in order to get into your BIOS. It could be F2, it could be F10, it could be delete. It depends on your motherboard. It depends on your system, whether you have a laptop or a desktop. It all really depends on the system.
Google is your friend here.
Google is most definitely your friend. And
Google
finally,
University.
your system's documentation is your friend.
Yes. RTFM, as we like to say.
RTFM. You'll see me and refer that to often. So once you're finally into that UEFI, you'll usually end up in some sort of landing page where you'll have some basic information like timestamp. You'll have a product name, maybe a product number. You'll see some information about your processor, how much RAM you've got. You will most likely also see what BIOS version or BIOS revision you have. That's really important to note. You might also want to, while you're at it, jot down your serial number. And I say that because in case you need support from the vendor down the road, they usually need to know the serial number of the motherboard if you're talking to the vendor support folks, to the motherboard support folks. Or if it's a system, well, your vendor is going to need to know the serial number of the system. So once you've taken that quick survey, you can then go on to the manufacturer's website to see if your BIOS is up to date. Why is that important? Because you probably want your BIOS to be up to date. A lot of issues get solved at the hardware level and security issues as well. So another thing you might want to look for while you're in your UEFI is if you've got virtualization technology turned on. So that's really useful once you do commit to Linux. With virtualization technology, you can support a virtual machine, and that allows you to simulate Windows later if you need to run stuff like Microsoft Office software, like I do. Right? I don't want to commit to Windows on my system, so when I do need it, I run it as a virtual machine. And there's a BIOS setting that accelerates that and makes it a lot easier with your hardware and a lot faster, much better performance.
And a lot of your virtualization software will actually require that to be on. So
Correct.
save yourself the time and flip it on while you're in there anyways. It's not going to hurt anything.
Nope. Agreed 100%. Unless you are on the bleeding edge of overclocking and getting the most benchmarks out of your system, man, flip on the virtualization tech and give yourself all that extra functionality. It gives you the ability to run multiple OSs and systems at the same time. In a nutshell, it does a lot more than just that, but it's pretty cool. Very useful. More important for you to install Linux, though, are the issues of whether or not you have compatibility mode or compatibility support mode enabled, first off, and secondly, secure boot. So in the case that I am showing here on screen, secure boot is enabled. And so that verifies that Windows is what's being booted. Anything that isn't Windows, it's going to stop. Well, that's a problem if you're looking to install Linux in most cases, right? So most installations of Linux will require you to go into your EFI to verify and potentially change some of these settings. And that's why you need to know what your configuration is before you go any further. All right, so that was the hardware side. There's a whole lot more to hardware. I think Eric would agree with me there. We could go into it forever.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't
cover the basics.
I'm trying to give you the basics, the once over of how to do it. If you're really committed to this, reach out to me after the fact, and I'll be glad to help you out and point you in the right direction. There's lots of resources online. Again, you're not the first to do it. I'm certainly not. Lots of people were doing it way before me, and I'm standing on their shoulders. So in turn, I'm trying to share what I've learned, and hopefully you can use this as your stepstone. So once you've understood where your hardware is at, what you've got, so you want to know your processor, you want to know how much RAM you have, you want to know how much disk space you're going to commit to this, right? All that stuff, that's all hardware. But then you got software. So that's the stuff you actually use once your computer is on. So Eric mentioned it. A lot of people are using Microsoft Office out there because the links are available in Windows when you first buy your computer. Sometimes they bundle it in there, right? So that might be your first concern upon using Linux. Well, that's what's fun about Linux, is that it actually supports all those formats. And this presentation, for example, opens just beautifully and plays back beautifully in LibreOffice, which is a free and open source version of Office that's out there. So the entire intent here of inventorying your software is to find out which of them do not have a Linux version or that you can't run in Linux. And so once you know that, you can kind of judge for yourself. Is this something that's for me? Because if you purchased thousands of dollars worth of software that you use every day in your workflow, this might not be for you. Example, if you're a content creator and you have a major subscription to Adobe design suites, right? That's a really expensive product. And if your entire workflow and how you do everything is based on that, it's entirely possible Linux isn't for you. However, another good reason to know what your software is because one of the big steps to moving into Linux is to stop using that software in the first place, right? Drop that bad significant other and move to something that's free and doesn't cost you. So here's some.
Just that nice little twitch of disdain as you said that. It was well done.
You like that, right?
That was good. Yeah.
So what have you got here? So here I propose a number of different options of software that's out there. It's free. It's open source. You can already use it in Windows. That's right. You can start using this stuff in Windows long before you make the transition into Linux. And so it makes the whole thing a lot less painful. If all your file formats that you're using are all the same native ones that these apps support, you're good to go. You have zero concerns. And so I've got a list here of many, many different apps that work on Linux that you're already using. LibreOffice. If you don't feel like paying for Microsoft Office, this is a really, really good alternative. I used to teach how to use OpenOffice, which was at the root of LibreOffice. Very good product. On the graphics side, I've been using these on Windows for a long time. GIMP has the same power as Photoshop, and it's free. Inkscape has the same power level as Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw, and once again, it's free, and you can use these in Windows. LibreOffice Draw is a really simple drawing product. Works really well. It's mature. You can use it, again, free. If you're using design and page layout software like Adobe InDesign, well, Scribus is pretty mature and works great. Millions of users already use VLC to play back all the various multimedia files that they've downloaded and accumulated over the years. I've recorded myself with Audacity. I've video edited with Kdenlive and OpenShot. They are great products. They're mature. They work well. And on the email and web browser side, well, you know what? Everybody's been using open source and copying open source to kind of get their own products going. Spotify, Signal, Discord, Steam, Blender, Dropbox, SyncThing, Bitwarden. These are all names that are very well known in the software world. They're all available on Linux because they're free and open source. Right. Enough about that. So we talked about your BIOS. You need to know it. You should update it. It should already be up to date right now. It's one of the major ways you can secure your system. It also can fix a lot of bugs, a lot of security issues, but a lot of performance issues are also fixed with a UEFI update, especially low power systems. It's amazing how much optimizations come out of the software side of things over time. So a good way to make your installation smoother is by having an up-to-date BIOS. I've talked about it. We've dropped the hints many times. You can start getting to know Linux using a virtual machine, and that's free as well. Recently, VMware Workstation Pro, which is a really good virtual machine software, you can download and install for free on your computer. In the past, it was VirtualBox, which is okay, but it doesn't have the same performance level or configuration level that Workstation Pro does. And if you're like a big Microsoftie, you could be using Hyper-V, but
why would you?
Yeah, why would you want to?
Don't do it.
Don't. Yeah, that's a whole segue I'm not going to get into, but why would you want to use?
We could go down that rabbit hole right now and be here for hours.
Oh, yeah, it would be. Plus, I have philosophical opposition to the thought of running Hyper-V as my virtualization product, but there we have it. But simply the biggest reason to build a VM, a virtual machine, is that you can evaluate your software distributions. You can evaluate which is the best version of Linux or distribution of Linux. And so here's where we're going to describe what a distribution of Linux is, because that's new to Windows folks, isn't it, Eric?
Definitely something that's going to be new to you. And if I can just back up 1 second and talk about the virtual machines, just to clarify, if you're going to go down the virtual machine route, if you install Linux within the virtual machine, you are not deleting the partition table. You're not clearing anything out of the computer that you're operating on. If you do go through the installation process, it's going to mimic as if you are, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to erase this disk? It's a virtual disk. It's not actually erasing Windows. You're not actually wiping anything, but still, please make a backup. Just because we're going to harp on that because we're nerds and we've seen people lose data before because they didn't have backup. So still go back and do the backup thing, but it will say, are you sure you want to wipe this partition? Yes, because it's a virtual partition. And it gives you that opportunity, like Gunny said, to actually run Linux. And it'll be just like you're running Microsoft Word. It's just a window on your screen and Linux is running in it. It's a great way to test drive it and see if it's for you, or see if that one-off piece of software that you can't find documentation for, if it does run. But it's a great way to test things out and see, get your feet wet without actually jumping in the deep end.
Truly. Definitely recommend it. It's the easiest way to get to know it. And again, it's just a simulation. That's all it is. A virtual machine is simulating a separate computer using the computer you've already got. And in fact, it stores that simulation as a file a set of files on your system. That's all it is. So where Linux differs greatly from Windows is that it's free. It exists in the form of code that is available out there for any of us to go and look at and download and use and redistribute, as long as we show our source code. And that's what's interesting about a distribution. So a distribution is the software that is free and based on Linux and works with Linux that they bundle together and then allow you to download and use. And so anybody can create a distribution. Now, would you want to just download any distribution? Well, you'd have to do a fair bit of research to figure out which one is best for you. Probably the best known distribution out there of Linux is Ubuntu. I like Linux Mint because it's based on Ubuntu, but it doesn't have the same interface. Ubuntu has its own interface. It is quite different. And for a lot of users coming from the Windows world, it might fly or it might not. I invite you to try it out. If you build a virtual machine, you can try any Linux distro for free, and you don't modify a thing. You can still carry on and use your Windows and your apps while you're running that virtual machine. Right now, I could have my email up and running while I'm running this Windows virtual machine. So that gives you an idea.
And just to toss another term out there, you may hear people refer to it as a flavor versus a distro. That kind of is an interchangeable word, means the same thing, just a different type of Linux.
Definitely. The different recipes, if you like, because,
that's
we all have different recipes. And I might decide that I want different seasonings and spices in mine, while somebody else might decide, no, man, that's way too rich. I don't want all of that. I want mine nice and bare and lean and quick. So you've got all of that out there. What I've done here is put together from my own basic experience over the years, and my experience with others, some of the distros that I recommend for general usage. Me, it's Linux Mint for general people, general folks. It's got a very large install base. It performs really well on older hardware. And it has versions of itself that work well on much older PCs. So if you have a really old PC, like say more than 8 years old, something with less than 8 gigs of RAM, let's say, and maybe a dual core CPU, you might want to run Linux Mint XFCE. This is a distribution of Linux whose graphical user interface is very lightweight. And so you're not wasting a lot of CPU cycles and video card cycles on drawing the interface. You're using all the power of the system to actually run your apps. So as an example, on my older dual core ThinkPad, Linux Mint was idling at about 25 to 33% of CPU usage at idle. That's really high. Whereas with Linux Mint XFCE, it's down to the idling between 3 and 6%. Massive difference, and it shows immediately in the heat and the power draw on the battery. Right, so that's why it's important to choose the right distribution. Now, if you're running a fairly new machine and you want something that's really zippy, then I have to recommend CachyOS. It is really fast, but it is not for newbies. It is not for newbies. I wouldn't even recommend it for somebody who's only had a little bit of Linux experience. I'd say get your feet wet with the command line before you get into CachyOS. But it's really mature. And if you consider yourself a power user in Windows, I think you can handle transitioning over to CachyOS. Nobara KDE has, for those of you who might be wondering, where does it come from? CachyOS is based on something called Arch Linux. It's written as Arch, A-R-C-H. And that's a very, very lean, high-performance OS.
People like Arch are evil.
Yeah. If you want Arch on your system, you've got to build it from the ground up. All the components that you want to see in there, you have to add in. It's a lot of work. I wouldn't do it. I use CachyOS. It was really fast. It just didn't like to game on my combination of hardware. My combination of hardware really happy with Nobara KDE. Nobara KDE is based on Fedora, but its claim to fame is that it's maintained by one of the main coders who publishes software for Steam. That is the gaming platform that a lot
That's
of
a clue.
know, right? So that's why I've been happy with that fella's distributions, because they are polished. And I've been able to run every Steam game I've got, including the AAA titles, on the Nobara KDE, and it's what got me off of Windows completely. So once you've selected whichever you choose, and there are many more, the list is endless. I could have a dozen on this list, but it's just too much, and we're already an hour into it. So what I'm going to say is that once you select a distribution, don't just download it and install it. Go to the distro's website, look up the installation guide and the documentation pages. Have an idea of where things are so that you can go look them up when you run into an issue or you just have a question. It could help you through a dialog box, and away you go, right? The other thing I should mention is that a lot of documentation has a pre-install checklist. The pre-install checklist allows you to make sure you've done all of your good work ahead of time before you begin the process. Another thing, if you have specific needs in terms of partitioning and you want to do manual partitioning, make sure you go and read the manual partitioning guide for that distribution. This is not something you just jump into without planning. Okay. I'll just say that. Again, this is what a virtual machine is great at. If you want to practice how to install using manual partitioning, a VM is a great way to do it. And once again, RTFM, read the manual, folks. I can't say it off.
You missed the F. You missed the F.
I did. Have we had to hit the censored button yet?
No, Pierre's not here.
Oh, darn. We'll probably get the option yet. All right. All right. So you've now decided on a distro you want to try. What's the next step? Once you've decided on the distro, you need to download it. And how's it downloaded? It's downloaded as an image. It's a big file. That's what an image is. It's a digital image of an optical disc. So like a CD, DVD, Blu-ray. This is how we distribute operating system media. This is how Windows will ship you your operating system. If you purchase it through the website, they'll give you a place where you can download the OS as an ISO. What they'll actually do is give you a tool that does the downloading for you and downloads that ISO. That ISO can be really small in terms of Clonezilla, which is small, or some of the other tools I use. They're less than 15 megs to download, but they can get as huge as 12 gigabytes or more. So they can get really big. They're really easy to recognize. They have an ISO file extension in pretty much every operating system and every website I've seen. They always end with ISO. Now, a word of warning, when you're downloading any software, and if you've never done this in Windows, you might want to start thinking of doing it. You need to verify your software that it's authentic and that it hasn't been modified without you knowing about it, because a hacker could have gone in overnight and uploaded a modified version for you to download. Aha. So we do that using what are called hash functions. You don't use them to get high. A hash function is a mathematical hash. It's an algorithm that's used to verify that the file you downloaded is the same as the one that was put up there for you to download in the first place. Okay. It's a way to verify that it is the correct file. So those hash functions have names. MD5 was the really, really old one. And we since have had SHA-1, SHA-2, that's SHA-1, SHA-2. Currently, SHA-256 is what I see the most of, but there's SHA-512 out there. So either way, whatever you do, when you download a version of Linux, a distro Linux, you've got to check the file. From there, you're not done yet. Once you've verified the file, you have to prepare your boot media. Now, in terms of Windows, to verify the hash of your file, you can use tools that you'll find in the Windows Store. Just search for hash in the Windows Store, and you will find all kinds of tools that will allow you to do a hash check. I used to use HashCalc back in the day. I think it's still around. It still works, and it will also generate hashes for your ISO files. Once you've verified that ISO file, you're ready to extract it and write it to your removable media. So typically that's done with a USB stick now, but you could burn it to a DVD, I suppose, if that's what you wanted to do. So the tools that I have used in the past with Windows are Rufus, RUFUS, and Balena Etcher. So that's whale in Spanish, BALENA Etcher. But if you want to avoid having to write entire images to a USB stick and then waste all of the remaining space, then I've got news for you. You can use Ventoy, VENTOY, Ventoy. So this is a little tool. It's really small, and it will carve out a small partition on your stick for itself to boot from. And then the remaining part of your USB stick will be a data partition like your normal USB sticks, and you copy all of your ISOs in there. When you do boot up from that USB stick, you're presented with a menu, and that menu is a listing of all the ISO files you have on that stick. And for example, you could use that to boot from 3 different versions of Windows, for example. On my stick, I've got Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows 7. But I also have Clonezilla. I also have CachyOS. I have Debian. I've got Ubuntu. Blah, 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 blah. I think you all get the picture. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Ventoy. So you can download it. It's another free and open source tool, folks. It's really good. So grab that for yourself. All right. Now you've done all the prep work. You're finally ready to do the installation. So the process, you're going to have to test the tool. You're going to have to test your OS. You're going to have to then run the install. You're going to want to update it, then install some apps, and of course, system backup and restore your data. I'm going to fly through this so you can refer back to the tools and to the presentation anytime. So testing, you might have to go into your BIOS before you can boot from your removable media, and you might have to change the settings as the distribution requires. So I've got no generic settings for you here, but a lot of them will require to turn off secure boot first. So keep that in mind. That's why you went into the UEFI in the first place. That will then allow you to boot from your removable media that you've lovingly prepared. Once you boot from that, you can start to get to know the GUI, the graphical user interface. Click around, kick the tires. You might want to join your network if you're on a Wi-Fi, or you might want to just go to the web and see if you can browse, see what you can do, right? If you don't like what you experience, do it again. Download another distro. Try again, right? Keep searching. Take notes. Maybe you'll try 5 distros in one day using this process because it's as easy as copying an ISO file to the stick, and then you reboot from that stick. It's just that easy when you're using Ventoy. All right. So eventually you'll get to decide, okay, I'm going to install this thing now. So once again, RTFM, go through the pre-install checklist for your distro, right? Just do it. You might have forgotten something, right? Your brain was busy. Yeah. Maybe the phone rang. The phone probably did something while you were doing this. So look at your list again, right? So the easiest way is to just let the installer do the rest and automatically decide the partitioning. I do not recommend you try a dual boot setup on your first Linux install. As somebody who has repaired dual boot systems that have failed from either Windows updating itself on its own or Linux upgrading itself or being
How dare it
upgraded
overwrite Grub?
Yep. It's no end of work because you now have to restore 2 operating systems to functioning order, right? Yeah, it's a whole other level of fun. And I think Eric has experienced that too.
Windows, yes. It took away Grub at one point on me. I was not happy.
Yeah, it's a different way of doing things, folks.
Mhm.
So who do I recommend manual partitioning for? If you're a power user or consider yourself a power user and you want to do things hard right away, go for it. It's doable. If you're detail oriented, you just might be able to pull it off. You got to read a lot of documentation. You might have multiple drives that you need to accommodate, or you might have individual needs. Maybe you're a coder, maybe you're a video editor. Who knows? There's a million different reasons you might have separate drives. It's usually a good idea to separate your data from your operating system, no matter what the operating system, period. Whether you're talking about Windows, Mac, Linux, if you've got your data on a separate disk, on a separate place, you're already a little step closer to more security. So you might have dedicated game drives. You might have your regular normal files on a separate drive. Maybe like me, you have quite a lot of virtual machines, and so you store them on different files too. So that might require you to do manual partitioning. Otherwise, if you're like my case study I mentioned earlier, just using the web, going to Facebook, collecting photos and videos, email, guess what? You can go with the one-step install. Most of the time, you're going to be asked to set a computer name and give yourself a username and a password. Don't skip the password part.
Speaking of passwords as well, this is probably the point as well where the install is going to ask you about encryption. And do you want to encrypt your home directory? Do you want to encrypt the entire disk? Know what that means and know what the implications are if you forget that password. Basically, if you forget that password, you're screwed. So be ready for that question. For operational security reasons, I always say encrypt the disk, but you're going to have to balance out your own security posture and what it is that your threat vectors, etc. But do not forget that password, because if you forget that password, you're screwed. So just be ready for that. And any screens that you do come up across that say, hey, you might want to write down this recovery key or save it somewhere, don't just go, I'll just worry about that later, because there is no later. It doesn't give it to you again. So just be ready for that.
Yes, there are certain things there's no undo for. So Eric is correct. And once again, RTFM, read the manual. Mm-hmm. A lot of these things are in the documentation. They don't skip over them, but the people who read them usually skip them. See what I'm saying? All right. Now that I scared the bejesus out of all of you, eventually you finish your install. It's actually pretty quick to install Linux compared to Windows. Very quick, actually. So things you might have to do after installation, depending on the flavor or the distribution you've chosen. You might have to configure something that are called local repositories. So Linux being something that is shared worldwide, it is often shared in the format that websites are shared, which is that they are mirrored. So a mirrored repository is one that copies a source repository, but places it closer to you geographically on the web. So you don't have to hop all over the world to go and download it from Australia. And so in our case, that means that we can have all kinds of servers in Canada that host that code for you to download your updates from, and therefore it's quite a bit faster. So you might need to do that in a distro. The distro will usually prompt you on what you need to do after that distro is installed. And I've got some screenshots of what that looks like in the slide deck. In Linux Mint, highly recommended, one of the post-install tasks is to select the best graphics driver for your card from the tool that's called the Driver Manager. Why is that? The default driver is called Nuvo, and it's a software-only driver. It's fine for your older video cards that aren't supported well anymore, but if you're running anything that's been made in the last 5 to 6 years, chances are there's a better driver for you in the Driver Manager in Linux Mint. From there, just like in Windows, your first priority should be to download and install the updates that are offered to you. Just do it. Don't even question it. There's many reasons for those to exist. 1, they fix bugs. 2, they fix bugs. 3, they fix bugs. Okay?
4, they fix security issues, which are also bugs.
After that, 4, 5, and 6 are
My
security
software
issues.
bugs.
I can't say that and stress that enough.
Mm.
Optional, you can then download and install a virtualization software like VMware Workstation Pro. And if you do have some of that paid or licensed software that you could not do without, well, you can then install it in your virtual machine. And that's a really, really great way to work around incompatible hardware and stuff like that. So, for example, if you've got a gaming rig and you purchased Corsair lighting devices that are all USB driven in a virtual machine, you can pass that hardware to the virtual machine. And with Windows in a VM, you can launch your Corsair utility to configure your lighting. How do I know this? Because I've done it. So it's doable. These are some of the things you can do with virtual machines. I'm just saying.
RGB lighting is very important.
Oh, yeah. I've got to tell you. I've had people who are like, if I can't have my RGB, I don't want it. All right. There's a way. In fact, there's a lot of tools that support RGB on your hardware. OpenRGB is one such tool, and it's, of course, available in Linux.
For those that don't know what we're talking about when we say RGB, that is the flashy rainbow colors on your computer that you can customize to make your machine just that much flashier. And of course, it adds speed and horsepower, all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah. You know, the rainbow vomit really gives you that high speed effect, right?
Sure does.
Some folks love it, some hate it. I've played with it. I usually
you're going to start a fight.
Color, but I probably will start a fight with it. So let's do it. That being said, the most important thing you could do for yourself after installing and doing all this good work is to configure some sort of rollback or backup solution. Pretty much the golden standard in Linux is Timeshift, and it works very similar to a lot of very well-known good backup products that you already know and use in your operating systems today. So that is Timeshift. So quickly, Linux Mint Cinnamon presents you with a nice welcome to Linux Mint dialog box. Gives you the option to disable it, and it walks you through the first steps and launches you into the documentation for the operating system. I've included in my slide deck here a preview of what its start menu looks like, because it creates a start menu very much like Windows. And just like Windows, it's categorized and allows you to select favorites so that they're the first thing that you see. It's pretty user-friendly. Linux Mint XFCE looks very much the same, except its interface, graphical user interface, is a little bit more pared down, a little bit simpler. It doesn't have all of the graphical transitions that Cinnamon does as a desktop environment. But XFCE, like I said, will run very well on your lower power systems. And in the screenshots that I've got here, it has the very same welcome tool as Linux Mint Cinnamon. And in fact, that's one of the main claims of Linux Mint. You get the same software manager and the same welcome tool, no matter which flavor you're choosing. So you've got that familiarity that's there. Both CachyOS and Nobara KDE are based on KDE. Nobara has other desktop environments you can choose from. Again, that's out of the scope for today. That goes into the deep end. Again, CachyOS and Nobara KDE to me are more advanced operating systems. They also will have a welcome utility that will flash on the screen, and they both have the same kind of KDE driven menu that has the same features you'll find in Windows. The ability to control the power on your system, to see a start menu that's categorized, and the ability to search that start menu and pin items as favorites. So all these options are available in these environments. They are mature. So once you've installed your updates, from there, you can actually start installing apps. And this is where your experience starts to get easier and simpler than in Windows. You don't have to download executables. Most of the operating systems that we have mentioned here today, actually they all do, have some sort of application that shows you what all the software is that's bundled for you to download off the web. So Cinnamon has the software manager. And it again categorizes your downloads. You can go fetch your software with 1 or 2 clicks, and that is it. And it downloads and installs, and it maintains itself. It updates on its own with the operating system as well. Nobara, KDE, and CachyOS also have such tools, and they're in the same category. They allow you to, they have the same features. They allow you to browse the different software you can install by looking at the different categories. And so everything is available out there. You've got the ability to run Chromium, which is the free and open source version of Chrome. You've got Firefox. You've got a version of Chrome out there that's called Ungoogled Chromium. It doesn't have all the Google functionality baked into it. You've got Brave, which is also available on Windows. So all of these are available on pretty much all the distributions. So really all you've got to do from there is prepare your system for the long run. And that is to ensure you got a good system backup strategy. So set up your time shift, but also make sure you back up your file to external storage, right? Do image your system once you've got a steady, known good state and things are going well. Take an image of the system with Clonezilla. Store it on your local server if you've got one. Store it on a disk. Store it on a USB key, whatever you use. If you've got online backups, chances are you can still use those as well in Linux. So you can configure and use a lot of different things out there. The idea here is to find a way to simply restore your system to known good state. That's really the idea. Once you've got to that point, to me, you're now ready to copy your local data back. And now you can start using your system with all of your old data. Whatever you do, don't destroy your backup. That's the whole point of the backup, right? And that should have you in good stead and running Linux for the long term. Now, every now and then you're going to run into an issue, and that's where troubleshooting comes in. And so don't be afraid if you run into trouble, error messages, that kind of thing. It can happen. I had them recently.
Gunny, this is where you put your 1-800 number in there?
Yes. So if you do run into issues, feel free to reach out. There's lots of ways out there to get help. You've got the distribution that has a whole ton of web information out there. You've usually got a forum on the distribution's website. You'll have knowledge bases. You'll usually have a known issue list for every distribution version that is released. So you can go consult those to see if your problem's already known. Chances are it's on a forum somewhere. And if you know how to use Google or any other search engine properly, it should surface those for you to look at. But
and I must say,
yeah, go ahead.
The nice thing too is the error messages that you're going to get in Linux actually tell you something useful to troubleshoot the problem. Unlike Windows that says 0x1234. Good luck. And then when you go to Google that, it's just a generic message that everybody gets and nobody actually knows what the problem is. Linux will actually give you a good output 97% of the time. There's that odd time where you're like, I don't know what this means, and it's just a garbage error. But majority of the time, you've got something you can look at, you can troubleshoot, you can sink your teeth in, and it's actually pointing you to what the problem is.
You bet. If you're self-sufficient and are like me, doggedly determined to do it yourself, you can probably do it if you're going to do the searching. You'll find it. If you need a little helping hand, feel free to consult a local techie. There's always one in your neighborhood. You just probably don't know about them. They're probably quietly doing their thing. So reach out. You'd be surprised how many techies actually have played around with Linux and know something about it. But that being said, if you're going to start troubleshooting yourself, I want to tell you this little secret. 80% of issues you run into or incidents are due to some kind of change. So think about that. What did I change? Did I unplug something? Did I plug something in? Did I update something? Did I shut down and restart? Like, think about what you last did and when the problem started to surface. All right. So that's one thing that can help you, especially when you're searching. The other thing, of course, is to actually use good search syntax. So what you'll do is you'll use the exact error message terms, the exact error message words and spelling. You'll enclose those in quotation marks, and then you will add the name and version of your distribution. So let's say you had a weird graphical error when you got into the start menu in Linux Mint after installing it. I'm telling you about an actual problem that happened to me. So after installing Linux Mint, I get into the start menu and there's some graphical garbage. Like it just looks weird. It's all pixelated. I can't, like, it's only showing part of the menu. So what I did is I went online and I typed Linux Mint, and then I just wrote graphical issues. But if you see a visual error, like Eric described, code this, or there's an error, go see the logs. Going into that log where they tell you to go, you will see an exact error message. You can even copy and paste it directly into the browser, right? And that will find it. So make sure you add your particular distribution name. So Linux Mint 22.3, let's say, which is the current version now. And that should find you the trick. Otherwise, feel free to reach out. I can't tell you how many different correct answers I found on Reddit. Yes. I'm not even a Reddit user. You too, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. All right. So if you do run into issues, don't give up, right? There's somebody else has run into it before you. I can guarantee it. So once you do have that system installed, you'll feel like gold because you've now got something that's really stable. For example, Windows, I've never had a single Windows system that could survive being on for a week without having an issue. Not one. Almost every Linux system. Almost every
Linux server that's been running for almost 3 years.
There you go, bud. There you go. The uptime on Linux systems is ridiculous. That's why they don't run servers on Windows, folks. There's a reason.
So imagine the internet if it ran on Windows.
Oh man. Well, actually, short story. Remember the service called Hotmail? There was a time that it did not run on Windows at all. It ran on something called FreeBSD, a Unix. Oh. And then Microsoft bought it out. Microsoft bought Hotmail. And when they started transitioning over to Windows servers, guess what they had?
Bugs.
That's right. Bugs, downtime, all kinds of problems. So
you're not saying IIS causes trouble, are you, Gunny?
Oh, I would not say that. I cannot bite the hand that fed me, or can I?
If you say that, we're going to have hit the explicit button.
So that being said, folks, Linux, it's free, but it's not free of effort. All right. You're going to have to put a little effort into installing it, very likely, especially if you're running something modern like Windows 10 and Windows 11. They're not going to make it easy for you to even get into your BIOS or to your EFI. But is it worth it? Well, I'm told that giving up an addiction does take effort and time, but it's often worth it. Like a 12-step program, perhaps. Ask me. It's been 12 years now since running Linux day in, day out, and I've committed to changing everything over to Linux now. So I think I'm not the only one, though. Lots out there.
I'm all Linux now, too. Have been for probably the last 6 years, 6 or 7.
Bravo, sir. The idea here is you're instantly lowering your cost of being in the computer thing. Just to do computing, you're instantly lowering that cost. When I was down and out of work at the end of 2015, I didn't have the money for a new machine when my machine broke down. So you know what I did? True story. I went to the Salvation Army and I found there an old Dell computer. I opened it up before buying it, and you know what? It had a micro ATX motherboard. That meant that I could upgrade it down the road. So I bought that and I went home with it, and that was my daily driver for 3.5 years. And I paid like $75 for that PC. Nice. So, there are really good reasons to stick with Linux. You can also keep your good old familiar PC that you know and love and you'll get the same machine just faster and more secure at the same time. And in a particular case, I can cite here, I have a gaming machine that was given to me. It's running an older NVIDIA video card, a 2080 video card with an Intel CPU. With Windows 10, which was the native build that it shipped with, this thing would reboot when you walked away for 25 minutes. All on its own. It would bomb out and reboot. That's with the stock drivers, then updated through Windows. Couldn't believe it. I couldn't have it, nothing ran well out of it. I installed Linux on it. It's currently running Nabara 43 KDE. Never ran better, and it actually sped up the games that it was running.
But do you win now?
Do I win? Well, I still don't devote a lot of time to gaming because, it's summertime now. And so there's, shooting and stuff like that to go and do. But I now have the satisfaction of knowing that I don't need to maintain a Windows computer just to game on the games that I already have paid for and own. And that to me is the biggest advantage. I didn't have to go and buy a new video card, which today is, I don't even want to talk about the prices of those days.
Price of a house.
So, I redistributed all my hardware. I'm running older gen stuff and I'm saving $1 so I can spend it elsewhere. So that's all I've got for you today, folks. I know that was an awful lot of content. I don't know how long we've been running. Oh my God, are we hitting a record here, Eric?
I think our record's about 2 and change, so not quite yet. There's one good question in the live chat in regards to, is it better for not having my data collected? Absolutely, yes.
Definitely. In fact, privacy is one of the biggest things that you're going to find in Linux. Everybody values it.
That's the nice part with it being open source. Everybody can audit the code and see what it's doing. And as soon as any kind of code is entered into whatever distribution it is that you're using that starts tracking or starts any kind of monitoring, it's going to be caught right away and flagged. Because we're using it. Yes, a lot of people that are using it that'll be listening to this will be your average user, but there's a lot of power level users as well that are contributing to it and coding for the distributions, and they will see that somebody has tried to slip in a tracker or some kind of system that's going to watch you, and they will just say nope and kick it out. So you always know what is underneath the hood, unlike Windows.
So it's not listening to me all the time?
No, the Alexa or the Google sitting beside you is, but the Linux itself is not.
Unless you configure it to do so.
Yeah.
It simply will not. And again, I want to show you how, I've got all these as virtual machines. So anytime I want to spin one up, all I've got to do is start up the virtual machine and you're going to see the thing fire up here on screen. It's there's not much to it when you're trying it out this way. You don't have to go into your BIOS to try out a virtual machine if virtual technology has been enabled on your system, and you can play and try things out and no commitment at all. So I recommend you all give it a try if you are in the market for it. And if you have any questions, well, feel free to reach out. And if it's a really big topic and you think we want to revisit it over time, let me know. I'll be glad to.
That was fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time to put that all together, Gunny.
Yes.
Like you said, that was a ton of information. It's like drinking out of the fire hose, especially if that was kind of your first introduction to Linux. That's going to be disorienting at best, because we talked about partition tables, we talked about losing all your data, we talked about backing it up, we talked about installing a new operating system, we talked about virtual machines. This was just a complete nerd episode that I absolutely love. But it's going to be a lot of information for those that are new to this. So Gunny said, reach out, take advantage of either of us, we can help you out. The Discord is there as well. Both of us are fairly active in there, and there's a lot of other people in the Discord that I'm sure would jump up and help you out as well that have been down this path and have gone down the Linux path in the past. But if you're security conscious and you're tired of your operating system spying on you and watching everything you do, remember that news article we talked about at the beginning? This might be an option for you. But yes, we want to cover it. Go ahead, Gunny.
Hey, the spying is real. As I've always said, for many years I've said it, if you're not paying for it, it's probably earning money on you. So think of that whenever you're using something that just came with the machine you're using. If it came for free, you are likely the product. Running Linux shifts that entirely.
It just gives you way more control.
Unbelievable amounts of control. It's dangerous if you got a lot of control, but it's exhilarating.
It can be. Well, again, Gunny, I appreciate you taking the time to put all those slides together and put all the work together. I'm sure the listeners do as well. Looking at the live chat here throughout, there's been lots of good questions, lots of good comments. I'm sure that we have probably converted a few people, maybe a few more once we get the audio version out as well. So
definitely,
I would chop that up as a success. So
yes, and if the demand is really high, and people want me to add this to my curriculum, I'll consider finding a way to package this up for people to consume. Even though off-grid school is supposed to be off-grid, if the demand is there, if you'd like to see more of this, folks, please let us know, and we'll keep it coming.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a little bit off the beaten path for the preparedness world, but I think it's an important thing to talk about because we can't get away from computers in today's day and age. It's just the reality. So we figured, why not address this and help a few people out and switch you over to the dark side if we can, because Linux is so much cooler.
It's definitely pretty cool.
I'm definitely going to be looking at that Acer to do that with in the next little while to change it out. Tell you how I do.
We'll get you through it.
Let me know. I'll be here to help you, bud.
Yep. Perfect.
Cool. With that, I'll bring episode number 275 of the Canadian Prepper podcast to an end. You can find the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, preferably running Linux. Please do submit a review. It does encourage the algorithm for about 20 seconds before they realize we're talking about preparedness, then slams us back down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And of course, we do record the shows live on YouTube, Facebook, if you must. And if you want an early peek at the shows, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Do click the notifications tab. It does, again, help the algorithm as well. And gives you a little bit of an alert as we go live. And you get a sneak peek into the show before it gets published in the audio format. And how can everybody get you, Brad?
batbradcpp@gmail.com. or on our Discord. Yeah, that was a good episode, and yeah.
Discord runs on Linux, by the way.
Oh,
yes, good.
Isn't it a beautiful thing? You can find me, Frugal Gunny, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram. Although I'm not on there a lot. You'll find me more often on Discord, though not under my Frugal Gunny name, and at offgridschool.ca, and in person at the annual Preppers Meet this summer.
I'm so pumped for the APM. Can't wait.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.
Thanks, Brad. I missed that part.
Got it.